Welcome to Urban Legends with your hosts, Smartwatch, Neil and Chris, and Lucas Speaker.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Urban Legends, the internet-based podcast like they all are, but this one's about different things than some of the others. I am honky-tonk accordion player Chris Flynn, and with me, as always, is jeweller to the great houses of Europe. It's Mr.
Neil Herbert.
Hi, Neil. How's your week been? Are you enjoying the holiday periods?
Yeah, well, it's especially busy period of the year for me, as you can imagine.
I mean, we should say that we're recording this before the holiday period, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do a little bit of artifice, and then we'll talk about your jewelling. So
which in itself is incredibly true.
It is true. How did you get into the jewelling for the great houses of Europe?
Yeah, well, as a young lad, I just always, loved diamonds
Bling.
and rubies and emeralds and any kind of bling. Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Couldn't get enough of shiny rocks and pebbles.
Was that because you were into hip hop when you were a kid?
Yeah, partly that.
Yeah.
Also the whole just jewellery lifestyle.
The jewellery life.
Flashing some ice, as we used to say.
You used to say in Port Slade.
Yeah.
You used to have a grill, didn't you? Of course, across your teeth.
Yeah, and the grill
top said
cubic zirconias, and
top said port, and the bottom said Slade.
Yeah,
lovely.
So damaged my teeth quite horrifically by the time.
You've got dentures now, of course.
Yeah.
Wooden teeth,
chompers. Yeah, good.
So how did you get into the jewellery making part of it from simply coveting jewellery?
I just found it was an easy way to make money. I mean, I don't actually make any of the jewels myself.
Oh, don't you?
That goes to a sweatshop.
Okay.
In an undisclosed location.
Yeah, not in the UK. Or is that not at liberty?
Not at liberty to say. Not at liberty, and legally might be in fairly precarious.
In hot water
union if I say.
Do you do the designs or anything, or is that also farmed out?
No, I don't do any of the designing. I just go onto Fiverr and someone design me some good jewellery,
right?
Or just copy things that are elsewhere. Maybe like somebody's on Etsy or something and they do something that looks good.
Yeah, which they probably copied.
Yeah, they've probably copied it anyway, haven't they?
Yeah,
so I'll just appropriate it. I think I'm very much though. I'm just kind of like remixing other people's ideas in a way that's unique to myself.
Well, there's nothing wrong with remixing, is there?
No, exactly.
It's how you make one hit record into two, I believe 50 Cent said.
It's just efficient, isn't it?
And how did you get your hook up with the great houses of Europe?
Just, a brass neck and a lot of lying. Haven't got there.
What was this?
I may or may not have pretended. So, I may or may not have pretended to be a long lost descendant of the Russian Tsars.
Oh, okay. So did you
say if you look at the resemblance
were
between me and Count Anastasia? It's uncanny, isn't it?
It is uncanny, yeah.
Uncanny at how we don't look anything alike.
Yeah, that is uncanny. Yeah, I mean, you could look more opposite. Did you?
I mean, she actually had bone structure. One's just like a hammer on a stick.
Did you claim to have trained under the great grandson of Fabergé?
Fabergé.
So is it lucrative?
You want to believe? Yeah. I mean, the most amount of money I could make for the least effort was very much how I've gone down this path.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And tying into my love of shiny things.
Yeah. So do you keep the good pieces for yourself and flog the rest to like the Swedish Royal Court or whatever?
The tat to some oligarch or some royal. They got no fucking taste anymore.
Yeah, the oligarchs, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
They're all fucking new money.
Yeah. Nouveau riche.
Ugh.
Hate them. Bring back the Tsar. That's what I'd say.
Not least because I could flog stuff to them as well. But so any kind of like any fancy houses or sort of aristocracy in the UK or kind of obviously we do have the royal warrant. Well, we're sweating on that one, you see, because obviously under
Charles is in now.
the late Her Majesty Queen, God bless her. But yeah, Charles in there. So got a couple of years more out of that one.
Dutch original
I'm hoping we're going to
jewellery.
renew and ride into the Caroline era, much as we have done in the Elizabethan one.
Are you thinking that you might just wait until he popped his clogs?
Well, you wonder, don't you, how much
Time he's got left.
You wonder how much time he's got left on the clock, hasn't he? He's had a good innings already, hasn't he? Bless him. But no, hopefully he'll be around for many years to come. But
I really, I've been watching the football. I really hate our national anthem.
Well, yeah, it's kind of crap, isn't it?
Yeah, but God save our gracious. Like, it's all about saving the most saved person in the country. Like the king or the queen, who have like
squeeze out his teeth, pays for him.
Yeah.
No effort for him.
Yeah.
And get angry about pens not being immediately available on the table or being too close to him when he doesn't want them when he's signing a document.
Someone take a look at his fingers because they're about to burst all over us.
I think individual.
I just kind of think.
But no, what you've got to understand,
Chris, is that
he's the figurehead. He's the figurehead of our amazing great nation, and as such, he's like the Fisher King, and he's his vaunted success.
Yeah,
is just a reflection of our own great,
glory,
awesome nation.
Yeah,
I can't do this with a straight face.
No,
it was written. I mean, let's face it, all these anthems were written at a different time, and I'm kind of not particularly.
I kind of like it to be rewritten to be a bit more kind of about
decent
the people.
What would you think about Jerusalem? Because a lot of people consider that. They
hate it.
Yeah, I'm not fussed. I think it's got the right tune.
I think.
And William Blake poems. Nothing wrong with a bit of Blake.
Well, Blake was one of these
British ashes casualty.
British like Jerusalemists who think that Jesus came to England and went on Glastonbury tour and stuff, and he thinks there were like these people who thought that the British Israelites, they thought that the British people were one of the lost tribes of Israel and that England was the new Jerusalem and all of this shit. And that's what the whole poem's about. And it's just how about we do a national anthem which is not about religion and it's not about the royal family. That'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? It's about the 70 million people who are neither of those.
Vindaloo or 3 lines on a shirt, then, is what you're asking.
No, because they're football songs. Okay. They're not a national anthem, are they? They're very specific to a sport.
The theme tune from the Dam Busters?
Theme tune from Minder.
Actually, yeah, that
I could be so good for you.
Oh, mine just got Dennis Walton singing it. No, I'll reverse my position there.
That's a good song, though. I'll do anything for you.
Strangled cat fucking singing Dennis Walton.
Yeah, but you get someone else to sing. That'd be. Can you imagine that? That'd be great at the start.
Diana Ross singing that at Wembley Stadium or something.
Start off like do. If you want to, I'll change the situation.
Actually, it's an improvement. Do you know what? It's an improvement.
It get people going.
Tune from Bullseye. What was that?
No, that's.
Hold on, don't tell me people aren't going to get there.
Yeah, well, just something like Chaz and Dave. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Something a bit more rousing, you know, that isn't talking about saving the most covered in cotton wool person in the country.
Roll out the barrel.
That'd
be all right. It's no classic.
My old man said, follow the van.
Yeah.
And I'll clearly tell you all the way.
I'm not sure we're there, but these are all improvements. I'll definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's be honest. Most national anthems are a bit shit, aren't they?
Song 2 by
Blur, yeah.
By Blur. Woohoo!
And I feel every melt, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much it's sort of...
Ghost Town by the Specials.
That would be... Well, this is the weird thing about...
wouldn't it?
Well, no, it would be appropriate, but this is the weird thing about Jerusalem as well, because it's basically, I mean, that poem is... I mean, it's a lot of it as well, it's about, wanting to go back to a more pastoral society.
Yeah, which never existed.
Well, no, rural...
all of that was propaganda, which was made up to bring Britain together for the Second World War. The world was never like that.
No, it's not. I'd say it's not entirely true. You did used to have sort of a lot of
working the land.
Stuff before the mills and stuff came up.
Yeah, but you would also be a serf.
Oh yeah, and it would be a lot of feudalism as well.
Like it wasn't. I'm not
saying it was a good time, Chris. Just saying, I'm not saying I hark back to those halcyon days. I'm just, but no, what I'm saying is that Jerusalem actually is kind of like a depressing poem about harking back for a lost time in the middle of the dark satanic mills and all of this pollution and smoke and shit. Anyway, because it's a weird one to sort of sing as a triumphant sort of thing, is what I'm saying. That's a ghost town. Actually, would be quite appropriate.
Ghost town, yeah. Ghost town by the Specials, our new national anthem. I think we can.
There we go. I think I'll agree on that one.
Cool. I might start doing a honky tonk version on my accordion.
Nice.
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
And we'll try and get that done for season 5.
Yeah, could do, couldn't I? Could normally pull something out of the bag. Okay, so Neil, you have often been described as a very sensual man, haven't you?
Apparently, yeah.
They call you sexual fudge, I believe, down the bingo halls.
It's one of many things they call me.
Do you know the most sensual of all of the supernatural? It's the vampire, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
And Neil, today, that's what we're going to be looking at.
The sexiest of all of the urban legends.
That was an excellent segue.
We've done vampires before, haven't we?
Have we?
I believe we've got Goebbels. Goebbels? No, it wasn't a Nazi.
Oh, the Goebbels vampire.
The Goebbels vampire, yes.
Yeah, in Glasgow.
Scotland, rather than here.
Yes, well, there's more than one vampire, Neil. I don't have to tell you that.
There's many a vampire.
So today we're going to be
got a few of them in Parliament, Chris, in my opinion. There you go, political comedy.
Oh, you wag. So today we're going to be looking at the Richmond Vampire, Virginia's tunnel hunting Nosferatu. And this is from a website we've used before called The Serpent's Pen.
Mm. It's an American vampire.
Yes. And
I imagine fairly similar to ones from the old country.
David Castleton's blog. That's what The Serpent's Pen is. And just a little bit about David Castleton, because we've used him twice now. He is a prize-winning author and blogger with a fascination for the darker side of literature and creativity.
Nice. Well, thank you for your
input, David.
David.
Yeah, thanks for that.
We'll be appropriating that shortly.
So this article is from April the 21st, 2021.
Yeah, fresh off the press is almost, well, for us.
For us, yeah. So this is quite a wordy one, so jump in whenever you want. It's another one of me reading a lot.
See what milks the juices, whatever that means.
So, in Richmond's historic Hollywood Cemetery, in addition to the graves of presidents and Pulitzer Prize winners, is an infamous mausoleum.
I'm going to just go in there immediately, because so there's a Hollywood here as well. It's not, it's not Hollywood land like in Los Angeles.
Well,
Richmond's in Virginia, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah, Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah,
over it. So it's in America.
So that's sort of middle America, isn't it?
Virginia, yeah. So that's like just south of Washington,
where they got that good tobacco growing.
They're smoking some gold leaf.
Virginia, I believe. Oh, there you go.
I'm having gold leaf, which is from Virginia at the moment. Mm.
Oh, is that rich and tasty, Chris?
Mm. Oh, do you know what? It feels like it's caressing my lungs. Yeah. Beautiful.
With mutagens.
Whatever. I drink a lot of green tea. I don't. I used to. I didn't even do that for whatever. So this tomb, incorporating ancient Egyptian and Masonic designs, and even marked with an insignia that looks for all the world like fangs, is the resting place of one W.W. Poole. An individual
trying to keep something in that must be contained.
Must be contained. An individual said to have been run out of England for being a vampire. The mausoleum, a notorious...
He would have been fine.
What, for being a vampire?
Yeah, he would have. He would have by now. Let's drink a bit of blood. Problem.
So, the mausoleum, a notorious gathering place for occultists and those interested in the black arts. I'm going to be doing a lot of that kind of voice.
You can be doing a lot of... Yeah, we're pulling out the old Matt Berry, let's not lie. But...
Yeah. Isn't marked with any birth or death date for Poole. There's just the year 1913 indicating when his wife died, but no such reference for Poole himself, leading to speculation of an undead vampire inhabiting a gaudy eternity. So
See that, because like the whole vampire mythos, like eternal life. Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, all right. Supposedly, be careful what you wish for, because you eventually drive mad with it.
I think I'd be all right.
I don't know. I think I'd be all right.
There's always new stuff coming out on
sleeping in a
Netflix.
coffin. Yeah.
Well, you don't have to.
Yeah, I don't know actually. Is that?
Well,
is
do you
that
know
part
what?
of
Like,
thing?
I would.
Maybe it's just maybe that's the thing, is when you do get sick of life after, like, I don't know, 10,000 years, you just sack it off for a couple of hundred. Just get in your coffin and just go, oh, fuck it.
Yeah, see how
Like, you
things
could do
turn
that
out.
at the moment, couldn't you? You'd be like, oh, maybe I'll give it 50 years, see how we go.
Do you know what? Like, I would quite happily make the trade of having to sleep in a coffin for immortality. Like, that's a no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer.
Just get yourself a nice big comfy coffin, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
That day.
Yeah, I
Lovely dry mausoleum.
I sleep on my front as well,
Yeah.
so it'd be fine.
As a vampire, you want to invest in these things.
Well, exactly.
Preach
That's the
comforts,
thing.
isn't it?
It's like with buying a bed, and you should spend as much on a bed as you would on a holiday, because you spend a third of your life in it.
Immortality is what you make of it.
Exactly. You know, you're not going to be just in like some hard wooden coffin. I mean, if you see them in the films,
if you're 6 feet under, just sleeping in soil in a wooden thing, then you're a chump.
you're absolutely
Getting what you
idiot.
deserve, getting what you paid for.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. If you're not willing to, do you know what?
Yeah.
You might think it's expensive, but if you're investing in yourself, it's always a good investment.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Self-care, you know.
Self-care, exactly.
Sounds selfish, but you're going to be better for others as well.
Exactly. Make you
Nosferatu.
Yeah, it's like the trickle-down effect. If I'm feeling nicer, I'm less abusive to others.
Yeah, well, not really, are you?
No, but I think
If anything, it energises you to be,
yeah,
to be
I'm
more
much, I'll
corrupt
get
and
much,
awful.
yeah, I get much better sleep. I can really put my back into
really,
it. No, see, the shoulder to the wheel.
Really oppress the proles.
So, mysteriously, there's no inscription to tell anything more about Paul's life, further heightening local anxiety over the mausoleum's occupant.
And so if you were a vampire, do you think you'd be a good vampire like Blade, or would you be a bad vampire like Dracula? You could do a lot of good, couldn't you, with those powers?
Well,
it's not just immortality, but you...
I mean, you're being very simplistic, Neil. Life isn't black and white. It's shades of grey, isn't it?
Well,
So
I don't know. Then like a shitty vampire like Morbius. I don't know.
I don't. I don't. I think
I've noticed Jared Leto ever done anything.
The only thing about being a vampire would be the difficulty of getting human blood to feed on without having to kill. So, yes, you break into blood banks or whatever, or have some kind of donation scheme amongst friends.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't want to kill people, would you?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Live long enough to get over it.
Yeah, yeah,
A few people I wouldn't mind sucking dry, to be honest with you.
Ooh, saucy. Back to the story. This perplexing and ominous tomb isn't the only aspect of what is known as the Richmond Vampire legend. Not far from the graveyard is an old railway tunnel that has long been seen as unlucky or cursed. The Churchill Tunnel, built in the early 1870s, was notoriously prone to flooding, cave-ins and subsidence problems so severe... Built it properly, exactly.
Musk had built that, that'd be still standing.
Well, that's what happens when you hire Irish navvies, isn't it?
Pay them right. Well, they don't care, are they?
No, exactly. Problems so severe that they led to rumours that the Richmond Vampire liked to skulk down there, with the evil around the creature generating many of these mishaps. Because, as we know, evil is what generates subsidence.
Yeah. He's just, he's a bit of a shit vampire so far, isn't he? So he haunts a train tunnel and it causes subsidence.
Causes black moles.
Yeah. I'm going to buy up a load of property.
Didn't have dehumidifiers back then.
Well, you'd have put up with it in those days, wouldn't you?
You need a werewolf because they actually act as natural dehumidifiers.
Well, they do. They absorb mould through the pores of their fur.
That's exactly it.
Pores of their fur, okay.
Yep, their pores and their fur.
Pores and their fur, yeah.
So, on the 2nd of October, 1925, a disastrous cave-in occurred, with tons of rocks and soil crashing down on a work train, killing, trapping and wounding several labourers. Just
They find them all completely drained of blood.
Doesn't say. Shortly after the
Suspicious.
Shortly after the catastrophe, eyewitnesses saw a horrific creature running from the tunnel's end with fang-like teeth and rolls of decomposing flesh hanging from its body.
Okay.
The creature is said
Not
to
a sexy vampire, then?
Not a sexy one, no.
He wasn't sparkling in the sun or anything?
No, he wasn't smouldering.
But he's out and about in the daytime, so he's not a vampire that can only go about by night.
No, he's a day vampire.
He's a day walker.
Day walker, yeah. The creature is said to have sprinted into Richmond's Hollywood Cemetery and disappeared into the mausoleum of W.W. Poole. So we've got some witnesses now. This is hotting up.
I like W.W. Poole as well.
But is this really what happened during the Churchill Tunnel collapse? Who might the vampire who dashed from the tunnel have been? What do we know about the life of W.W. Poole before his entombment, and how might vampire stories have become attached to him? And what are the reports of occultists and Satanists gathering around the mausoleum? Let's begin by examining the strange legend of the Churchill Tunnel disaster.
Is that the one we just referred to?
Yes.
Okay.
So now he's gonna forensically go through it.
He's just cleared it up, so the jury will have absolutely no option but to convict at the end of this.
Yeah.
Stirring peroration.
Yeah, but what is it they say? If the rolls of decomposing flesh fit, you have to acquit. Yeah.
Well, I think you're making a lot of assumptions here just because he had fangs and decomposing flesh that he's a vampire, but fair enough.
Very judgmental. Mausoleum.
Yes, I like hanging out in graves.
It could just be a goth.
It's just Tim Burton, isn't it?
Yeah. So
indulging in one of his hobbies.
So the Churchill Tunnel was built by the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad Companies in 1873. The 1,200-metre, 4,000-foot tunnel is one of the longest in the US, burrowed 4,000 feet under the Richmond Churchill district, and was assailed by problems from the start. Richmond's soft blue marl clay has a tendency to shrink and then swell in response to fluctuations in rainfall and groundwater, a fact which, during the tunnel's construction, led to multiple cave-ins and 10 worker deaths. Brilliant. It's like, like building a stadium in Qatar, isn't it?
I note that there's absolutely nothing to do with vampires here, though. It just looks like a kind of place where it wasn't particularly safe to build a tunnel.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, kind of, we've started now.
But might as well
carry on.
Sunk cost, isn't it?
The tunnel remained so troublesome throughout its working life, with water seepages, safety worries, and a tendency to call buildings on Churchill to tilt and kink, that in 1890s a decision was made to replace it with a 3-mile double-track railroad viaduct. The viaduct, which extended along the James River, easing past Hollywood Cemetery, downtown Richmond and Churchill, was completed in 1901, and in 1902 the tunnel closed. So it was only around for 30 years. The Churchill Tunnel, which soon grew dilapidated, stayed shut for over 20 years. But by the 1920s, with Richmond's population and economy expanding, the C&O realised they needed the extra railway capacity. So in 1925...
Let's reopen that crappy tunnel.
Yeah, the company decided to restore and enlarge the unlucky tunnel. Well, might as well
unlucky, more structurally unsound.
Structurally unsound tunnel. They hadn't done a proper sort of surveying on before building. Though every engineering firm consulted thought such a plan to be harebrained.
It's unlucky. It's not consult with the experts and they tell us, what, you fucking stupid.
It's made of clay.
Clay. Got a fucking tunnel there. C&O's tip you off.
C&O's own technicians approved the tunnel as safe and works commenced.
How about if we pay you double time? It's safe now. Wink, wink. Yes, sir.
Christmas bonuses are just around the corner. That's... A series of minor cave-ins, however, took the lives of 12 workers.
Yeah.
On October
clearly a vampire.
On October the 2nd, 1925, a work train of around 200 workmen were in a tunnel about 160 yards from its western end. Their job was to clear dirt by loading it into the steam train's flat cars. As the crew laboured away, a brick fell from the tunnel ceiling, slamming into one of the train's 10 wagons. The workmen knew this was an ominous signal, and sure enough, more bricks crashed down, several electrical cables cutting the lights and plummeting the tunnel into darkness. "Watch out, Tom, she's a-coming," Benjamin Cusby, the train's burly 28-year-old fireman, shouted to his engineer. Panic buzzed through the black tunnel and workers began swarming towards the exits, stumbling and tripping over railway sleepers and each other, convinced Mosby's prediction would soon prove to be accurate. In the mayhem, according to certain accounts, some workers pulled out their knives, slashing desperately at anyone who got in their way. That's good, isn't it? Got real team spirit.
Good orderly safety procedures here.
You've lost the dressing room.
This is why you want to get rid of all this, elfin safety and red tape, Chris. Let people use their initiative.
Yeah, let them bring Bowie knives in.
Stab their way out.
Stab their way
if anything, just get them all armed with, automatic rifles.
Yeah, chainsaws.
A little quicker.
Yeah, make it like Day of the Dead or something.
Rockets.
Suddenly, a whole section of the tunnel collapsed, 190 feet worth of soil plunging towards the crew, triggering an immense cave-in that spread along most of the tunnel's length, buckling roads and swaying buildings on the surface. Most of the workmen died.
Nobody could have seen that happening.
No one could have predicted
that's
this.
A combination of bad luck and vampirism, clearly. Nobody could have predicted
Evil vampirism, yeah.
Play harder next time, people, if you don't want this to happen.
Most of the workmen dived under the train's flat cars and, crawling beneath them, managed to get out of the tunnel's eastern end. That's good thinking.
Yeah.
Shop labourers poured from the entrance.
Should I stab my teammates or take shelter?
Take shelter and crawl along where it's safe. Shop labourers poured from the entrance, hobbling with injuries, smeared with dirt and blood, gashed with cuts, and gouged with wounds. Then, from amongst this throng of disoriented workers, they're alleged to have appeared the most horrendous sight.
There's a lot of alleged and supposedlys, and
there always is.
Yeah,
it hasn't been to court yet. Alleged has to be said. Like even when someone, even on the news, they say the alleged victim, don't they?
Yeah.
So
they're so scared of the vampire lobby these days. Can't say anything, can you?
Really, really powerful.
Can't say anything about vampires these days. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. So, a creature staggered.
They're all good and sparkly. Not my experience.
Well, the vampires rule Hollywood, don't they?
Yeah. Big Hollywood might want to lie to your listeners, but that's not on my watch. They're rotten flesh, buck-teeth motherfuckers.
Yeah, cause subsidence. A creature staggered into view, spattered with gore and streaked with blood. This entity seemed partially decomposed, with rolls of skin hanging from its naked, muscular torso and swollen arms.
It's the fat controller, that little shape thing.
Fresh blood smeared the creature's cheeks, neck, and mouth, a mouth which hung open to reveal jagged, fang-like teeth. Unlike the terrified men around it, the creature showed no indication of shock or concern. Accounts claim the ghoul then dashed in the direction of nearby Hollywood Cemetery. A group of men chased it, but couldn't catch the fleet-footed monster.
So hang on, how are they? They're all in this dark tunnel, so how they see it?
What are you talking? You're not listening. They're all out of the tunnel now. They've all come out.
Spotted him on the other side of the tunnel.
He's come out of the tunnel after them.
Ah, okay. And then gone and run up to the cemetery.
Yeah.
So he's causing cabins.
They did, however, pursue the creature closely enough to see it disappear into a mausoleum, that of the infamous W.W. Poole.
Again, I'm putting this very much on. They're all getting bribed to say that was. Come on, lads. Clearly, this is malfeasance. You're gonna have to. No, it was vampire.
Yeah.
It
was a vampire. So we all saw him. We chased him.
How could you explain this? It was vampire. Really? Where did he go though?
Stick to the story, lads. Stick to the story. Yeah. If we all say
it, getting paid.
Some say the pursuers then tried to enter the tomb, but accounts disagree concerning what happened next. One version of the legend has the men jimmying open the door just in time to see a coffin lid closing.
You can't reopen it, can you?
Can't reopen it. It's held down by Hellspawn. Another story insists they found the tomb locked from within, and despite their numbers and strength, were unable to open it. Yet another
like a demonic force was keeping it held shut.
Wow. Yet another tale states the vampire screamed curses from inside the mausoleum, presumably so petrifying they caused the men to back off. Get out of there! I'll stab you up! Go away!
He's quite a cowardly vampire, isn't he? He's doing a lot of running away from it.
Well, no. He's done his cave-in. Presumably had a bit of a nibble on some.
Well, he had a bit of blood drinking in there. He's just a bit more surreptitious, Yeah,
and then he got back in there where he knew he was safe. I mean, a vampire...
He's had 20-odd years. He's not been able to get any blood. And he's like, they start using the tunnel again. Brilliant. They do some more cave-ins.
Well, we don't know what he was up to in the in-between times, do we? We don't know. Huh? Who's just cracking one out
Vampires
for 20 years.
take a very long time.
Yeah, it's like super edging.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when you've lived 5,000 years, Chris, you're gonna,
Yeah, you can take. You can really take your time. Like Sting.
The tantric vampire wank.
So, ominously, the description of the entity, with folds of skin hanging from its partially decaying flesh, would be consistent with the decomposition expected of a body treated with the burial practices of the time, time after about 2 to 5 years.
What, as it would have been rotting after they buried it?
Yeah, so that's like, it would probably look like that after 2 to 5 years.
Okay.
But Neil, get your nut around this. Paul had been placed in the mausoleum 3 years previously. So it's consistent. CSI.
Bullshit. Sounds more like a zombie to me, apart from the fangs. Zombies don't cause cave-ins, though, do they? Or do they? We don't know.
No, zombies cause earthquakes. Some also say that, as the vampire emerged from the tunnel, he muttered something about his wife, and it's known that Paul shared his mausoleum with his spouse.
So is she like a bride of Dracula, or...
Well, we don't know.
Was
she a
normal... We
normal...
simply don't know.
I mean, it could be that, he
may have been mortal.
He fell in love with Immortal.
Maybe it's like...
And that kept him off the vampiring.
The movie from the 90s where, he was just like, he was a righteous man, but then when his wife died, his beloved wife, he then turned to Satan and...
Yeah, well, I can understand that.
Became a vampire.
Like, it's understandable, isn't it?
Yeah,
All I'm saying is it'd be nice to have the option now.
Yeah.
So, such narratives, unsurprisingly, have led to the notion that Richmond Vampire was involved in the Churchill Tunnel disaster. Some believe the vampire, angry at the disruption the engineering works were causing to his underground hangouts, caused the tunnel's collapse.
So it's just a limby vampire then, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite a tedious chat, this vampire.
I don't know. I think you're giving him a hard time, man.
I don't know.
I think you're giving him a hard time. You're not big on vampires, are you, apparently? That's what I'm getting so far.
I think I'm a bit of a traditionalist on vampires. I want them being
in Eastern Europe.
Castles in Eastern Europe.
Well,
blood and just
time moves on, Farage.
Some the classics are the classics for a reason, Chris.
He then gorged himself on the bodies of the dead and injured workers, tearing and sucking with his fangs, hence the blood his mouth was smeared with, before fleeing the hazardous tunnel and hot-footing it back to his tomb. But what really happened during the Churchill Tunnel catastrophe? Was the apparition seen staggering from the entrance really the Richmond Vampire? Read on and we'll find out.
Oh.
So now this is more your speed. A more sober look at the evidence. Oh, here we go. Got a little semi on, have you?
Wow.
Good. Shows. Got a little chub on. Little chub. So, a more sober look at the evidence shows the vampire's appearance during the Churchill Tunnel disaster in quite a different light. Just before the cave-in, fireman Benjamin Mosby had been shoveling coal into the engineer's furnace. It was common for the firemen engaged in such tasks, due to their intense labour and the fire's heat, to work without a shirt. Oh,
Yep.
getting hot in here.
Oh, it's like the Pepsi, whatever. Was it a Diet Coke, lad? I don't know.
Diet Coke break.
Oh.
Fireman break. When the tunnel collapsed, it caused the train's steam tank to explode. Mosby was struck with a tsunami of steam and scalding water, making his skin peel off in rolls, while the force of the explosion, flinging him back, inflicted further injuries and smashed his teeth. Mosby, however, managed to escape the engine, crawl beneath the train, and stumble out the tunnel. When he staggered from the entrance, it seemed the severe shock he was in made him strangely calm. He asked that his wife to be contacted and told he was alive and not to worry. Mosby then collapsed. Workers laid him on a nearby embankment and poured water over him in an attempt to soothe his terrible pain. Bystanders noted that swathes of his blistered skin had fallen away in flaps measuring up to 4 inches in width. Ooh, pretty horrendous. And that he also had lacerations from crawling under the train and several broken teeth. Not
only are the tunnels they're building like really fucking chunky, the trains are exploding. They're going through them as well.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, no expense used.
Yeah. That's all down to vampires, surely.
Mosby was assured his message would be relayed to his wife. A taxi took him to Grace Hospital, where he died within 24 hours. Interestingly, Mosby was laid to rest in Hollywood Cemetery, though it was certainly not in W.W. Paul's mausoleum. Among Richmond's working men at the time, apparently, a slang term for dying was "going to Hollywood," referring to the city's famous necropolis.
I like that. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
They're going to get the pictures, boy.
The pictures on the great beyond. So Mosby wasn't the only fatality in the Churchill Tunnel cave in court, though Mosby's was the only man who made it out of the tunnel to have died. Others weren't able to escape. The duty roster listed 3 men, including the train engineer, one Thomas Joseph Mason, all missing. In an attempt to find any lingering survivors or recover bodies, C&O dug down from the surface, getting to the train 8 days after the collapse. Well, you're not going to get any survivors then, are you, unless they've got water?
You don't know. You can survive for
3 days without water.
Yeah.
But this is 8 days.
There might have been some, I don't know.
That's why I said unless they had water.
Yeah.
I did cover myself, don't worry.
All right.
They reached Mason's cabin. His corpse was found upright in his chair, pinned in place by the engine's reverse lever. At that point, the company chose not to go on with the rescue effort, citing the cost. $30,000 in today's modern money. So not very much.
Well, if we want to spend that sort of money, we could have, shored up this tunnel or actually got non-exploding boilers. We've installed a boiler with a valve on it.
Yeah, we would have got someone to actually do some sort of geological survey to make sure that we weren't just going into clay. And the fact the rescue attempt triggered more cave-ins. The decisions may also have been influenced by the fact that the 2 other missing men, Richard Lewis and H. Smith, were African-American casual labourers. Wow. There may well have been more itinerant workers. Some have speculated as many as 6 trapped in Churchill's tunnel, as a record keeping of such people in those days could be scanty. Whoever was left was destined to be entombed in there, along with the locomotive and its 10 flat cars. In spring 1926, the Virginia State Corporation Commission, which regulated the state railways, ordered the tunnel's western entrance sealed for safety reasons. It's been bricked up.
Right. You're just going to create a vampire habitat there. That's what you're going to do.
Well, exactly. Or a rat man.
Yeah.
So it seems that part of the Richmond Vampire legend centred on the Churchill Tunnel was based on the death of Benjamin Mosby. The skin hanging from the body, the blood, the fangs, and even the vampire's apparent calm and utterance about his wife all charmed with Mr. Mosby's horrendous experience. Though the newspaper reports of the accident at the time seemed to have been factual, the taxi that took Mosby to hospital had just carried a journalist to the scene. It is likely that over the years, memories of the incident became distorted into something more sinister. In fact, Mosby was buried in Hollywood Cemetery, and the workers' slang phrase, going to Hollywood, might have later fed into an evolving belief linking the vampire that emerged from the tunnel with that of the graveyard. The vampire's dash for the necropolis may have been a garbled retelling of some accounts that claim Mosby at one point tried to run towards the James River. But what of the myth's other component, Neil? W.W. Poole, his alleged vampirism, and his creepy mausoleum in Hollywood Cemetery. Let's see what we can find out about the elusive character. So, I mean, that sounds like a horrible way to go.
That's awful, yeah. I mean, 4-inch wide, Christ. Yeah.
I'm glad that we don't, well, I was going to say we live in times where that doesn't happen, but it does happen, but just not in this country, yeah.
Not a job I'd want to do, you know.
I'm glad that I don't do manual labour.
But puts into perspective me whining about my office job.
Yes. So, was W.W. Poole the Richmond Vampire?
Tell you what though, Chris, this RSI. My fingers get a bit sore sometimes.
Do they? And you get quite a bad back sometimes from sitting in your chair quite a lot, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Well, so I think Mosby got it easy.
I think you got it, yeah.
Sore ass.
It's got over with quick.
Eyes get a bit tired.
Yeah. That's strange.
Sometimes when I've got my my work headphones on, my ears get a little bit sweaty.
Oh yeah, I bet you get uncomfortably warm.
Or
maybe a little bit pinched as well.
Difficult times. So, legend states that W.W. Poole was run out of England for vampirism. But it appears Poole was born in Mississippi around 1847.
Blame the limeys.
Yeah, typical, isn't it? Come on, guys. The Revolutionary War was ages ago. Get over it.
Look, I'm sorry we burnt down the White House in 1815. Soz about that. But, you know, we're all friends now, yeah?
Well, you shouldn't have been murdering up the native people. You know, now that we could.
In Canada and all that.
Yeah. So, William Wortham Poole was the son of Samuel Poole, a merchant, and by 1860, William was employed as a clerk in the state capital, Jackson, Mississippi. Later, in the 1860s, Poole moved to Virginia, working as a clerk in a tobacco factory in the Richmond suburb of Manchester. Then, as a bookkeeper and a private secretary. He became a well-established Richmond accountant, often working for the influential Bryans, a family of newspaper publishers. Poole married his wife Alice in 1866, and they had 4 children. His wife passed away in 1913, but Poole lived on to the age of 75, dying of pneumonia in February 1922. The only mildly spooky incident connected with Poole's death was the fact that his close friend, one Samuel Owens, died on the same day of a broken heart.
Yeah, coincidence, isn't it?
Owens, Manchester's Commission of Revenue, had, along with Poole, been a prominent member of Richmond Central Methodist Church and had attended the same Freemasons Lodge. The thing is, as well, pneumonia is actually a viral disease. Yeah, so if they were hanging out, it's contagious. If your immune system's fucked, then that's how you get it.
They're probably practicing kissing on each other.
Practicing kissing?
Yeah.
For if they get new wives.
That's my theory, yeah.
It's not gay, we're just practicing kissing for the women's. It's all right. Active in the civic affairs, Poole appears to have been a person of some local influence in his later life. Shortly after his death, he was described as one of the oldest and most widely known residents of South Richmond. So, how did the outlandish Richmond vampire legend come to weave itself around W.W. Poole, a man who appears to have led an exceptionally normal and respectable, if moderately successful
Absolutely
life?
Nothing vampiric thus far.
It's possible, Neil, that the seeds...
It's possible. That Jesus was a vampire. And he did rise from the dead, so there's a lot more evidence there.
That the seeds of some of the rumours were planted thanks to the elaborate funerals of Poole and Owens, funerals which included full Masonic rites. The Richmond News leader reported, "Today is a virtual holiday in this section of the city, owing to the funeral services of W.W. Poole and Samuel R. Owens, 2 of the most distinguished citizens of Southside. Representatives from practically all of the public offices, hustings courts, and banks, and persons from all walks of life attended the funeral of Mr. Bull this morning, and the same large crowd will pay their last tribute of respect to Mr. Owens this afternoon. Most of the vampire hysteria around Paul is, however, likely to come from his tomb. The mausoleum's only inscriptions are the name W.W. Paul and the year 1913. There was a biblical quote, Isaiah 11:6, ending with the phrase, "And a little child shall lead them." But the slab bearing this inscription fell off a few years ago. Weren't very good, masons.
Well, they were good at building tunnels. They weren't very good at... Pretty much everything in this community seems to just fall apart.
Yeah.
Maybe getting some outside engineers, I don't know.
Richmond Vampire legend is linked to the dangerous working conditions of the Churchill Tunnel. Hazardous and unpleasant working environments can give rise to a strange brand of industrial folklore. Glasgow Vampire Rumpus was connected with the steelworks that sparked and smoked just behind the necropolis, and tough conditions at Pittsburgh steel mills helped create the myth of Joe Magarak, a giant superhuman steelworker who stirred a vats of molten metal with his hands and rescued workers from industrial accidents. Might have to look at him.
Good.
But with regards to the Richmond Vampire, perhaps an institution lying close to Hollywood Cemetery was responsible for much of the legend's fame. The graveyard is adjacent to the Virginia Commonwealth University, and the idea a vampire slept in the necropolis seems to have spread amongst the students in the 1950s and 60s. Yes, students in it.
Whoa.
Crazy kids.
Bunch of hippies.
Stories circulated of strange occurrences in the cemetery, especially after nighttime adventures spent sneaking in the graveyard. Such stories were likely fueled by that period's vogue for horror films and the appearance of various kinds of undead creatures on late-night TV. Many who were young students in the 1960s would have grown up watching 1950s vampire movies. As the 60s wore on, the overactive imaginations of some of the undergraduates may have also been enhanced by the psychedelics wildly used.
Drugging. And that rock and roll music.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix.
Probably playing Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Was that around in the 60s?
No.
Nah, doesn't matter. Playing Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Doesn't matter.
Don't really matter. The Richmond Vampire myth established, it seems to have been handed down to new students